guys, welcome back to another episode of Soulful Feast, bite-sized information to nourish your body, mind, and spirit. I'm your host, Stephanie Zubiri, and today I am so excited because it's really an example of how the universe works and how it brings people together spontaneously and for a reason. I'm here today with style educator, content creator, and fellow podcaster, Kristine Fernandez, who you might know as Miss Fernandez on Instagram. Hi, Kristine.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I know. I'm so thrilled. And, funny backstory, guys, how we actually got connected is that she tagged a friend of mine in an article I wrote about the Philippines and travel and leisure, who then reposted it. And I was like, who's this girl? Who's Miss Fernandez? And I'm like, she's so cool. She's so stylish. And she's coming to the Philippines. And she's Filipino. I'm like, we got to have her on Soulful Feasts.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for reaching out as well, because on that story that morning, I was like, oh, let me just flick through the magazine, not expecting anything about the Philippines. And when I did, I was like, I'm actually going to be there in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, fantastic.
I know. And now here we are.
Here we are. So I know it's been kind of like a rush to get here. Like there was a lot happening in the universe today and yesterday, but I'm so glad you're here. You're looking fresh as a daisy. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how you started owning your energy, which meant owning your life. So that's, Kristine has an amazing backstory. And I just wanted to give you a moment to share your story with the audience. You were a flight attendant for 7 years, right?
Yeah, that's right. So basically about a decade ago, I was a flight attendant. I had spent 7 years of my life flying around the world. And then after that, I decided, hey, it's time to build my corporate career. I'm going to get into marketing. I'm going to use the degree that I have and just slide right in. So I moved back from Dubai because I was living in Dubai, went back to Australia. But for about a straight year, I was completely rejected from any job that I wanted. Like any job that I wanted was like either just didn't get back to me, or I'd get to the end and then I just wouldn't make it. And then somewhere along the lines, that was probably one of the lowest times of my life, because I had attached so much of my identity to my career.
Yes.
Wearing a uniform, and it said so much about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's also a corporate culture, and 7 years is no joke. That's really an investment in time, effort, learning. And, that's like, how do you even erase that part of you and reinvent, right?
Totally. And which is the funny thing is I was in it. So I was probably a bit too deep in it to see that experience, it was a great life experience for me, but on my resume kind of didn't translate to what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And so through all of those rejections, I was like, maybe I'll start a YouTube channel. And I asked one of my friends who she used to watch YouTube, and I was like, do you reckon I should start a YouTube channel? And she's like, yeah. Yeah. And I was like, all right. So how does it work? What do I do? She's like, just post a video a week. And I was like, all right. And I took that and I made that my career, basically, until it then evolved, years down the line to TikTok and Instagram to what it is now.
So, okay, I have a couple questions. So number one, what was sort of the defining moment that made you decide to leave your first job?
Yeah, well, it was actually a lot of moments, a lot of little moments. So probably by about year 2.5. So I was only 2.5 years into it. I was like, it's going to be time for me to resign and then go back. I had seen so much of what I had wanted to see, but I also hadn't developed the friendships that I wanted to develop. So it was like these little things that I'm like, oh, life is fulfilled over here, but over here it feels like something's missing. And then with my final 6 months, because our contract was like 3 years at a time.
Yes.
I was like, you know what? I've got 6 months left anyway. Let's just go. Let's just have fun. And through that kind of vibe, then I attracted the friendships that I really desired.
Yes.
And of course, so my perspective around that job started to change, and which led me to another 4 years. But there were more little moments that were happening, and they were more like internal. So my body wasn't coping with the jet lag very well.
I mean, it's exhausting. I can only
Yeah.
imagine. So I know a lot of people who are like, it's such a wonderful, glamorous job because you can see the world, but you don't really see a lot because you're always in and out and
Yes.
tired, right?
Yeah, you're kind of on the go like quite a lot.
Yeah.
So you're in a city for 24 hours, and with that you've got to sleep before, sleep after, and then you see little bits, and you've got to keep going back. And that was one of the other things. I was like, I would love to see the world on my own terms. So it opened up this world. Well, literally, it opened up the world. And I started to consider what it would be like if I could access the world, but in my time. And it also said, hey, look at all these beautiful hotels that you can stay at and all of these luxury experiences you can have. And I started to brainstorm like how I would access that in my, if I were to build something of my own. I didn't think too deeply about how, but it created like this standard of what I would like if I were to do that on my own.
It's wonderful to like really visualize it, right? And then of course life comes around and sort of slaps you in the face.
Yeah, like 10 times over.
Yeah. So what was like, can you describe sort of like a really like difficult moment of like rejection before you decided to sort of like commit to making your career?
Yeah, okay. That as well was kind of like this incremental like rejections. At first, rejection was okay to take because I hadn't had so much of it. So at the beginning it was all right. Like, all right, let's just do another application. Let's just do another interview. So it was kind of okay until I started to get worn down. So it wasn't necessarily one defining rejection. It was lots of small rejections that were like consistent confirmations that this wasn't it. Funny, because when I look back now and I go, if I did get what I really wanted, I think what is happening now, which is I really love what's happening now, it wouldn't have resulted in the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
it's funny, right? The things that you think you want, then
Yeah.
it happens that actually there's a reason why you didn't have it.
100%.
So like even for me, so I super resonate with your story career-wise in the sense that I just only this year did I really commit to being like, this is me. This is going to be my business. So I left like my I had an editorial position at Tatler. So hi Tatler, thank you. I still write for them. But I was there for 5 years. I've always been a journalist and a writer. Most of my work was freelance. But that was my first time that I was sort of in like a corporate structure and part of a family and a brand identity. And, there were opportunities during that time that I was there that like I wish I had gotten, but then didn't and kind of felt bad about it. But then at the same time, I wouldn't be where I am today doing things that I really, really love and that I'm quite passionate about. And I have this sort of creative freedom. But I won't lie, guys, we've talked a lot about imposter syndrome on this podcast. It is so hard for me, Kristine, to be like, this is the business of me and this is going to be amazing. And I'm going to market myself. And it's like, who am I? Right? Like, how did you overcome that? Right? Like, how did you be like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to do this and go for it and
wow, that's such a
take
good
up
question.
space,
I almost want to ask your question and be like, was it a defining moment for you to say, I'm leaving this to then build a business of me? Or was it also like moments?
It's funny because I'm actually a very intuitive person. So I'm super energy driven. I don't necessarily live in my head. So I'll have gut feelings and then I'll overanalyze it in my head. But the gut feelings are super strong.
Yeah.
Like when I know that this is not right anymore, that this is what makes me feel good and not this.
Yeah.
It was just more a matter of convincing myself that the universe has my back and that I could actually earn. I have 2 kids that I have to support, right? It's not just me. So that's like a whole other ball game. So it was really scary to leave sort of like stable income.
Yes.
And then be like, okay, I'm going to like poker, like all in.
Yeah.
And trust. And you know what? I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
And I'm still waiting. Let it rain, guys. Advertise. No, just kidding.
Well, the reason I ask is because It was the same for me. So
Yeah.
for me, it was like, I don't know that I got into this business and said like, oh, I'm going to make it like a business of me. Very much like you, it was like these little signs. And one would not tell that they were signs, because if you're getting rejected all day, every day, you're not going, oh yeah, thank you so much for all these rejections.
No.
Oh, I'm doing so well. Thank you. It's just making me so much stronger, which it does make you stronger. However, it starts to tell you like, what's a yes, what's a no, what's a yes, what's a no. And I'm like, well, in my mind, a yes would be an amazing corporate job in marketing where I could be up here and then travel the world in luxury and da-da-da. And it just wasn't working. And so I was like, what's a way around this? And I kind of understood social media a little bit. So I would be at the dinner table with people and then people working in socials. And I'm like, what do you guys, so like, how does it work? How does Instagram work? And as a side hustle, when I was still a flight attendant, I took up photography as a hobby.
Yes.
And then one time, so here's a little clue. One time I was getting some photos printed of my own, like photos that I'd taken of friends. And then there was a designer there, a fashion designer. And she was looking over like this. And she's like, is that your work? She's like, are you a photographer? And I just bought my camera like a week ago. And I was like, I am. And she's like, great, because I need a photographer. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, I needed one as of yesterday. And I was like, well, I'm going to London tonight and I'll be back in 3 days. What do you want to shoot? And she's like, oh, just my new collection. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And then, so then I go to London. I have no idea how to use a camera properly. So I'm like, I'm probably going to need lights like this. So I'm like, when I get back to Dubai, I'm going to go to Ace Hardware. I'm going to buy some floodlights. Like, I knew nothing. Anyway, long story short, did the shoot, and then she rings me like a month later and she's like, guess what? I'm opening Dubai's first fashion week. My thing is going to be Dubai's first fashion week. So anyway, that one experience gave me a little, like just enough confidence to go into it when everyone was rejecting me in Australia. So I wasn't getting the jobs that I wanted, and I was like, all right, I'll do photography. And then I got contacted by this guy. I was working with a guy in the markets, and he goes, there's a girl who's working for me. She's a famous Instagrammer from Spain and she needs a photographer. Do you want to collaborate with her with like a contra unpaid? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Did it. Then I started to see the behind the scenes of the business.
Yeah.
So all of these things on the front of my mind wasn't working. All the things happening around me, everything clicking into place bit by bit, teaching me how to do socials, teaching me how to make better photos, teaching me how to present.
Isn't that funny? When you stop planning, that's when it unfolds.
Totally.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like I had to unlearn so many years of this sort of like a boss babe culture where you have, you know, a life plan, life goals, blah, blah, blah. And you're like going after things rather than allowing it to come to you. And I think that's, for me, has been sort of like the biggest shift.
Yeah.
It's just sort of just embody the energy and what it is you want. Kind of like you being, I am a photographer. So therefore you are.
Yeah,
right?
embody it first.
it's like, yes, I am. Yes, I am a photographer. Therefore you are.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny, guys. Like I can't stress enough how much believing in yourself really everything will fall into place, because you attract that energy, then people will believe in you too. But it's really hard. I mean, I often stumble and be like, what am I doing here? Why am I like, I have to keep, you know, reminding myself that like, yes, it's okay. I can take up space. I can be visible. My story has value because whoever gets to listen to it and connects with it, that's all that matters, you
Absolutely.
know? What are some of your sort of like practices that help you kind of get over that or stay on track?
It's really interesting that you say that, because you're right. With every stage that you recognize you've grown or made a decision, it's almost like internally there is this identity shifting kind of process and ownership of what you've stepped into. And sometimes you choose to step in and the steps start to happen, but maybe the real deep down inside hasn't caught up yet. So I have like 3 key practices. One is to really take the time to recognize where I've gotten. And I do that recognition practice by either journaling, or I actually work with like an energy healer. And for me, throat chakra and speaking is very powerful from connecting what I've identified with my brain to then making it real, and I can hear myself. And when I start to hear myself over and over again, it's almost like I brainwash myself.
Yes,
to
absolutely.
to remember, okay, well, this is what you've done, and this is why it's working, and this is why I deserve to be here. And then eventually that just starts to become your belief.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like what you said about actually speaking it out loud, because so a lot of us do journaling or, some form of expression or thinking, but when you say it and declare it to the universe, there is a vibrational shift. Sound has vibrations, and that has the power to really affect everything around you as you co-create and manifest your reality with others. So I love that reminder of kind of like saying things out loud, because that's so important, So another thing I wanted to ask you, it was so cute because I was kind of like reading a little bit about your backstory and, what the original tagline of your other podcast was like, woo woo to woohoo. It was so cute. I was like, I get that. It's like woo woo to woohoo. It's like so fun. But I love how openly and freely you speak about money and affluence and success and wanting luxury in your life, because I think a lot of us has been taught that it's not good to want these things, right?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like, oh my gosh, that's like superficial, or that's like, but you really, there's like abundance should be in all places, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of people have money blocks. So let's share a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So even I had to work through that at the beginning. I used to feel like, oh, if I want luxury, like, can I say that out loud? It makes it look like I'm superficial and greedy. Like, why do I want to make a lot of money? Like, why? Is it just because I want nice things and show it off and show that I'm worth something and that I've done something? But that was the superficial stuff that was on the top of my mind existed. But as I started to learn, well, money and wealth it's resources, right? So I started to dig into why does this matter to me? And then I started thinking about my family, and then I started thinking about my friends, and I started to thinking about community, where it's like the more resources you have, the more you're able to give back. And I remember sort of in my journaling would write down like the reasons, what I would do if I had money. If I had unlimited money, what would I do? And I was like, I would love to pay this person this, because if I were to employ people, which now I do, well, they're not on payroll, but I work with lots of different contractors. I feel very pleased that I can offer them, amounts and contracts that I think they're, I'm not feeling tight about it.
Yes, they're like worth their value.
Yes, it's fun to be able to offer it generously. Yes. And that's always been I've always had this kind of dream, like if I go out and dine, I would love to be generous with the way that I tip. I would love to be able to just contribute to charities without thinking about it. And then as a practice, so I remember one time, so I wasn't making that much money yet, and I was coming out of the groceries, and then there was a charity, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to, donate. And it was more than what I had expected. Like they were like, oh, maybe put down $60. And in my mind, I was going to put down $5. And I was like, this is a sign from the universe of what you almost have to practice the wealth that you aim to give. So then I was like, so then I have to be unafraid of delivering more than what I currently, the me now thinks that I can give $10. The person that I want to be wants to be able to give 100. So I was like, as a practice, here's a shake hands universe, I get this. I was like, I'll put down 60. And I was like, that felt nice. And I was like, so I would start doing these little practices to just extend out of my personal comfort zone as a sign to say, yeah, I trust where you're taking me. I think you're hearing what I'm saying, and you're putting down these things. And so it's things like that.
Kristine, I super love and resonate with what you said. It's such a revelation about sort of stepping out of your comfort zone and trusting that the universe has your back, and sort of what is the future me going to be giving to a charity? That is an incredible way to reframe the way you see money and wealth, because, and I'm going to repeat it to you guys out there. That is such a wonderful suggestion to journal. What would you do if you had all the money that you wanted, all the wealth that you wanted. Because chances are it's not stocking up on superficial things. It's actually a lot of meaningful projects, meaningful, right? Like
Yeah,
you're not being
absolutely.
like, I want 10 Birkin bags. I really don't. It's super not my thing. I find it kind of crazy. But it's like, chances are it's exactly that. You want to help people. You want to be able to pay generously. You want to be able to give back generously. So kind of like in the same vein, I recently launched a children's book celebrating neurodiversity, and it's about a white chameleon who tries to find the rainbow inside him. And it was a totally non-profit project. And I was like, I really believe in this. This is a huge investment for me. And I just trust that it's going to, it's where I want to go. And, you know, everything is going to charity. I'll trust that people will buy it, and I'm just going to take a bet on this, and, you know, that it will reach the people and the audience that it needs to reach. And, you know, get this, right?
Yeah.
So because the publisher turned it down because he's like, I'm so sorry, we need to make a profit. And at the prices you want to sell it at, which we understand why, like we just can't take on the project because we're still a business, right? So I was like, okay, so I have to self-publish. And when the printers gave me the cost of the hardbound books and then the softbound books, because I really wanted to sell the softbound books at like a really low price, I was like, that's a lot of money. That's like $5,000-6,000 US dollars, right? I'm like, I mean, that's super not in my budget. Let me see and figure out. Okay, give me a second. And you know what? I texted all my friends and I'm like, guys, this is my project. It's illustrated by Vico Cham, an artist on a spectrum. I am pre-selling the hardbound books at 1,000 pesos each to support the printing of the softbound and to give to these two charities. I am taking pre-orders. And I swear to you, within 30 minutes, I sold 300 of the 500 copies that I needed to sell.
Gosh.
Yeah, everyone committed, like 20 copies, 30 copies. Yeah. So I was like, okay, all my costs are covered now. And from now on, anything that is made from the book can now go to support the charities.
Amazing.
It is. So it's like exactly like what you said, where it's sort of like, if you put out there and just give freely, it can also come back freely. And so many other opportunities have sort of come my way by sideways of that. You know, like not through that,
yes,
but around
almost like the peripherally. Like, that's even a word.
And I really love that I will do that. I will write what will I do if I have lots of money.
And honestly,
I love it.
I feel like I remember coming up with this thing. It's like the 7 layers of your why. There's like, you have your first layer of why, which is like all the nice stuff, which is the fun stuff. And then you go deeper, like, why do I want that? And then why do I want that? And then you get down to your core. And at the very core, it's almost like we're generally after creating a feeling. And those feelings, they don't have to come from tangible things.
Yes.
While money is a resource, money is energy and money is a resource. And that's it. And at the end of the day, when you're aware of why, then everything that you do thereafter, in not really in pursuit of, but in attraction of the wealth, it becomes very clear to you. And so whatever blocks exist there start to dissolve because of your clarity.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things, so I had this vision while doing my meditations. This maybe was, I would say like 8-9 months ago. I really was working hard to clear those money and abundance blocks that I had. And, you know, I was like, because I guess I come from a political family where it's like, wealth is not good. You're not supposed to be ostentatious. We give back. And I'm very proud to say, like, my family, like, we're privileged, but we're also like, we, you know, give back and I've always been in the space of it's about public service. So, you know, for me, it's like, okay, there were a lot of, and I found later on when I was doing my digging that anytime there was something to do with wealth or money, like, I had relationships that were either with me because of money or rejected me because of my money and background. So it's not necessarily my money, but like what the family represents or whatever, right?
Yes.
Like, because I'm a totally independent person.
Yes.
I'm not supported by anyone, right?
Yes.
So it's like, but it was always like this thing that it was almost like it's wrong to want to be wealthy. But then at the end, I was also like, okay, if you're not, well, how can you give back? How can you be of service also, right? So I had a lot of conflict, and I was having this meditation, and I saw this vision of sort of like two temples. And one temple was like dark, broken down, dusty, in disrepair, and just like no, just like it was a poor temple. And no one, it couldn't help anyone. It was actually taking from people, soliciting funds from people, and like draining society. And then there was another temple, which was like kind of like golden and radiating and overflowing. And there were people who wanted to be there and support. And there were also people that the temple could support generously. And there was a continuous flow of like giving and receiving, because you know what? A poor temple can help no one, but an abundant temple can, because you have resources to give, right? And then it just kind of comes back. And then that's where I was like, okay, then we need to tend to our temple, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Tending to our temple is where it really begins, because, well, that's where clarity begins as well, right? So if you're clear on what you want to do with your wealth, then I feel as though it's a lot easier to build it because the blocks are clear. But in terms of, like you were saying before, when you, like, I think for the most part, I think inherently people want to be generous, inherently. And I kind of like went through this, I started, I guess, tapping into the feeling of my body whenever I feel I'm in scarcity versus when I feel like I'm in abundance. And there's a very clear distinction. You can have the same intention to be generous, but when you feel like you don't have enough, there's a tightness in the body that kind of, it's actually like a thick kind of energy, because you imagine being in a box and you kind of want to get out of that box, but you just can't because it's so small. But then from the other side of things, when you're feeling abundant, and anyone can do this exercise at any time, think of a day where you feel rich and think of a day when you feel poor. And in that moment, take a moment and try to tap into how your body feels. And you'll feel that one feels quite constricted. You're the same person. You have the same intention to do whatever it is about, being generous to yourself or others or all. But one feels like this and the other one feels free and flowing.
Absolutely.
And flowing. And that in itself is like an exercise, because what you were mentioning earlier about, let's say, relationships ending because they're there with you for money, or or ending because they're afraid,
Yeah.
So your personal relationship and the context for which you've experienced even just the concept of wealth, and then the actual thing of wealth, has created for you potential, like a feeling of loss of like, why can't I retain this? It's
Yes,
because,
absolutely.
yeah.
It's interesting how all of that goes deep down into your DNA and your like physical energy also. And I love what you're saying about the expansiveness. So I do have a talk that I give and a practice. It's called the abundance mindset. And, it doesn't just tap into wealth or money. It's just true abundance in its essence is about flow. It's about letting go so that you can let more in. And the sooner you let go and give back, or just release either what is not meant for you, like no attachments, the sooner more things can come in. And you will, the people I know who are truly like abundant are people who just are constantly giving and are not attached to anything. They're like, okay, sure, you want this? Go ahead. Sure, I'll help you. Go ahead. Like, even with opportunities. And there was a time in my life where I used to be like, oh my God, like this girl got the gig and I didn't get the gig, and you're in the scarcity mindset and you're freaking out. And that just makes you a person that no one wants to work with. But when you're kind of like even helping each other out, be like, I'm sorry, I can't do this job, call this person. It'll all come back to you.
Always.
And you have to trust that, what is meant for you will really come to you.
Always.
Right? And it's like I don't know if you've heard of the term aliwalas,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So it's like when you enter a room and it's stuffy because it's all closed up and it's got all this dense energy. But if you have a room that has a state of flow, of light, of air, then that's the room you want to be in.
Yeah.
So you want to be that room. You want to be that light,
Yeah.
that airy, that maaliwalas room, not the dark, stuffy room that kind of like suffocates people and drains everyone's energy.
Do you know
right?
what I like an analogy? You know, think of water. You know, like there's sometimes if you water that doesn't move.
It's stagnant.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
and it just gets dirty and murky.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. Like, let's say if it rains and then you have this pond and there's no drainage, nothing. It just gets murky and nothing can breathe, nothing can grow.
Bacteria, it gets fetid.
Yes. Whereas if you think of like a pond where there's more space for the water to go, everything just flows, there's life, there's movement. And if you can look at sort of money in that sort of sense,
or just abundance in your whole life, right?
Yes, success, absolutely.
And even energy, even
in, out,
relationships.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny you mentioned that because that's actually in my workshop. So aligned. Like, I was watching The Last Airbender with my children, and there was this whole thing about the chakra pools.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a perfect example of abundance. If the pools are blocked, then there's no flow, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Fundamentally, I think that's what it's all about. Like, as you mentioned, the chakras. So whenever you feel like out of balance, really one of those chakras or a number of those chakras you can clear for that kind of thing.
Let's talk a little bit about, your background and kind of like your Filipino-ness. Like,
yes.
I'm sure people would love to hear more about that and your family and coming back here and
Yeah, okay. So I'm Filipino, kamusta? Fully fluent. Both my parents are Filipino. I've got two brothers. I was actually born here in the Philippines.
Okay.
And so one of the reasons my Tagalog got good was because first I could understand it at home, like my parents would speak Tagalog at home. But then I studied here for a few years and Tagalog was mandatory. And I learned it and then it stuck with me. And I'm glad it stuck with me because it's like, I don't know, I'm really pleased to be able to speak the language.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess that's about as anything you want to know about my background in particular?
No, just curious, like, what's it like? Is it a big part of your identity?
Absolutely.
In Australia,
Yeah.
what is it like for you? Also, I think being a modern Filipino woman who has, I guess, a cross-cultural background. That's something we talk about a lot as well on the podcast. Like, does sometimes our cultures sort of like inhibit us or expand us?
Oh man, I love this convo because I have a lot of pride in being Filipino. And as soon as I started doing Tagalog videos on TikTok and Instagram, which is where most of my work is, I found it was a great place for expressing that side of me. I don't know what happened. One day so I do fashion videos. And one of the days I just started to talk like in Tagalog and I was like, this is really fun. So then my editor at the time, like she's Filipino, so she could stitch the clips together. And I was like, this is hilarious. And then I started to find, I was like, isn't it so interesting being on social media? Like, being that person that I wanted to see when I was younger. Because when I was younger, I was always so excited to see Filipinos on TV because it wasn't very often. Like it wasn't very often back then. And then when I found out like, who's that guy from Black Eyed? Is it will.i.am? Is he? No.
It's Apple the app.
Apple, yeah. And I was like, oh man, he's like Filipino. And then this person's Filipino, this person's Filipino. And then that's when I realized I was like, I really enjoy this, like this all of me that's Filipino, and because I enjoy the language so much, I feel like I want to be able to share more of that as well, because I feel like sometimes maybe it's not from my experience, to be completely candid, sometimes it's not the language that a lot of people really look to as like this, like the pride behind the language, I felt like didn't really exist as much as other languages. And so when I thought, I'll take that. I'll take that role because I think our language is really beautiful.
And I saw as well that you have done some community work here.
Oh, what the? I ran a
the
workshop.
workshops and things. Yeah, let's talk about that. That's nice.
Yeah. So I was in a personal development course, and one of the projects that we were encouraged to run a community project. You can do anything you want. Like, you're starting from a blank piece of paper. What would you create? And at the time, I was like, I would love to just do something in the Philippines. So the course was in Australia, but when I wrote it down, I was like, I would love to run this. It was called Tayo Na Philippines, which had a double meaning. It meant like, it's our turn Philippines, and Tayo Na, like stand up Philippines. And it was a motivational forum, basically. So I got a few friends who had been doing well, and to speak about what it took to go from here to there, to inspire action, and to demonstrate self-belief.
I love that. I think it's like quite the theme of today's episode, right? Like self-belief, how you can take yourself from here to there.
Yeah.
And it all starts basically in here, right?
Yeah,
like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And we can do this. And it kind of relates as well to our nation. I mean, just a slightly off topic. I feel like sometimes we put our own selves down, like, oh, we can't do that. We can't be like them because whatever.
Yeah.
And it's sad because you can see really the power of transformation when you believe that it's possible. So, just a little message out there as Filipinos, like we can believe that we can be a better nation. We really have to believe it and ask for it. Right?
Absolutely. And the gap between, it's almost like it can start off as this little whisper, like, oh, should I do it? Can we do it? We can. And then you create the bridge between the belief to the actual action. Here is the part where things start to change. Yeah. Like, if you want to create change in your life so that you can manifest your dream life, it really starts off as this little seed. And where the real work is to get that seed to grow by you taking action. So whenever you're taking action, you're building trust with yourself, that you're committed to yourself and your vision. Then you grow the conviction within yourself. And then next thing you know, you're like, oh, look at these amazing things that are happening in my life because this is what I wanted. And now it's just here. And of course, at every stage of that journey, you feel like you come across new challenges, or it can feel, there are times where it's quite rough, like what you mentioned, you'll come across imposter syndrome. You'll come across things like logistical issues where it's like you feel like you have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But as you go through those things, you start to shift the person that you are. And that's how you take yourself from where you are now to the person that you want to be. It's really a combination of those. It starts off in here. It's all non-tangible until you make it tangible and you literally bring it to life, like you bring it to this world.
And you really have to embody that. So, what's really interesting? A friend of mine, Liv Marathi, she's, check out her podcast as well. She's the founder of Ina Wellfest and Ina Wellness. And she, the Illuminated Path podcast. And she said, do less, embody more.
Oh, I love
Isn't that amazing? I was like, when I read this, I was like, this resonates with me so much because I feel like I keep like doing and you're like in a rat race. And if you just take a moment to sit and embody, kind of like that moment of yours where like, I am a photographer.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yeah. And you embody the energy you want to be, the person you want to be. It's that inner work and that inner, almost quiet confidence to then expand to the world. That's where the magic happens.
Well,
right?
have you heard that saying, be, do, have? So you actually start off by being or embodying, and then you take action from that place. And then as a result of doing that, you then get to have. Whereas I think at the beginning of my journey, I was more in the doing, same. I was like, I forgot about the being bit. Yes. I was just busy doing. Like doing. Like, why am I not getting anywhere? And I think the being part has a lot to do with how you see yourself. I'm a photographer. Yeah, we can all use that as our mantra now, as the energy. But and then taking yourself, when you know you're in that place, decisions become a lot easier. So doing becomes a lot easier. Okay, I'll tell you a story. So talking about be, do, have. This is this is one time, this is a season that really changed the trajectory of my life. So, you know how you asked me before about the beginning of my career.
Yes.
So I started off as a flight attendant, years of rejection. Then I started doing all these odd kind of businesses. And I'm like, is this it? Nah. Is this it? Nah. Is this it? Nah. Investing time, money, energy. I'm like, no. And then I found the one that I was like, this feels like 99.99% it. And I'm content if I keep doing this for the next 5 years. It's totally fine. And that was teaching healers and coaches how to use YouTube. Because, you know, I learned about the world of energetics and manifestation. And I met some amazing people, and I'd ask them, like, how are you guys getting found? And they're like, oh, word of mouth. I'm like, let's get you on the internet.
Yeah.
Let's get you on YouTube. And then somewhere along the lines, I started hearing lots of people going, Kristine, how do I fold my sleeves to look like that? Or what should I wear with this? Totally unrelated to everything that I was doing. It was all fashion, lots of fashion questions. And then I go, you know what? I'm already doing the social media thing, but what I was doing when friends would ask me those questions was I would WhatsApp them my answer and then send them little videos. And I was like, if I just put this on TikTok, a platform that I'm not using for my business, then problem solved. I can send the links to everyone.
Yes.
On another note, so that was my mind kind of like, this is how we're going to solve that. On another note, someone said to me, you know what? Why don't you try TikTok, post 3 videos a day, do it for 30 days and see what happens. No attachments. Think about it like throwaway content.
Oh my God. 3 videos a day.
Yeah, but wait. She goes, throwaway content. She's like, think of it like stuff that you throw away. That was the only thing that got me over the line, because if anyone told me to do that now, I'm like, babe, I would love to take a breath, you know. Like, but at the time, I was like, look, if it can be throwaway content, let's do it. Anyway, so May 1st, 2022, I wake up and I was like, if I'm going to do this, I may as well start on this nice round number. May 1, 2022, it's going to be done May 30, 2022. May 1, I do my life, you know, I do my job, and then end of the day, the light's going down. And I was like, I should probably make a video if I'm going to do this. So I'm like, all right, I make this one video and then it goes like little viral. So the next day I have like 100 new followers and I'm like, all right, cool. And I was like, well, it's day 2, Kristine, time to make a video. So I make another video. And then on day 3, like all the 3 videos that I had made had gone super viral. So by day 3, I was like 70,000 followers on TikTok.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But
so this was all style videos.
Literally, you know what I said? Like my line?
The stuff that you said. Oh.
The opening line, it was like how I went from nothing to wear to always having something to wear and feeling more stylish. And I recorded it in my wardrobe with bad lighting. And I was just like, this was my throwaway content. And then the thing was, because I'd been in digital so much, you know, starting the YouTube channel, learning about Instagram, I knew how to turn it into a business. So by day 3, I was like, I guess I'm pivoting. I'm like, I'm going to change my business. And so that's what I did. And then in a month's time, like one of my friends, she worked in digital as well. I was like, can you help me do this? And I was going to hire her, but I didn't know how much to pay her. And I was like, let's just go halves. And in reality, the reason I said that was because I knew it was going to require dedication, but I also knew selfishly that I wanted the same dedication from her that I was going to give the business as well. So if we went 50-50, then no issue, you know? And so we did. So we launched the first workshop and the workshop did well. And then that was it. And that has been the last 2.5 years. And because of that one thing, you know, so I believe this is worthwhile information. I believe I can do this. I believe. But then the next part was the doing, right? I will do. So I committed to myself that I was going to release a video no matter how bad it looked, or no matter, I didn't have a plan, no attachments. It wasn't going to be a business, nothing. And then as a result, I now have. And even saying that, I'm not going to lie, it still feels a certain way for me when I say, yeah, I have my dream life. Oh, like, who are you? Who are you?
That's amazing.
Yeah, but I think maybe that's the practice of it, and recognizing that once I didn't have, like once all I had was rejections, and now to be able to say I have, it's true. So there's a truth to it, but I guess what I really like, I have to teach myself to also, I am in the process of really embodying the having now.
Yeah.
Because this is still pretty fresh.
And to relish it, right? To relish the success, to receive, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I just turned 40 2 weeks ago.
Happy
2 weeks
birthday.
already. But
You're well in. Welcome.
Yes, welcome to the club. And at my birthday party, I stood there and all my friends were there. And, my partner Scott had said so many nice words. And I just said I was so grateful for all my friends. And one of the declarations that I said was, I am standing here today and I want to receive your love and honor your love by wholly receiving it, because I'm the kind of person that almost I'm the giver in my life, and almost like when people pay me a compliment I get uncomfortable, and it's actually not even honoring their compliment or not honoring their love if you don't know how to receive it wholly. So I was like, I declared to the universe, I'm like, I'm ready to receive. I don't need to just always give. And I know I can give more if I can learn to receive more and really hold that space and expand,
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
With that said, how is it feeling now that you're in receivership mode? What's the vibe? How does it, what's your practice?
Okay, so it's been kind of a crazy whirlwind. And I'll tell you something really funny. So I always had sort of like a blocked throat chakra, which is really strange because I'm a journalist. I'm a host, like a TV host. Like I was in, I have a podcast. So self-expression and writing is not a problem for me. But I love to sing, but I can never sing in public. Like I always croak. And last night, I got a little tipsy at this lovely party with
Fun.
so many people. Thank you, Moe Shandon, for inviting us to this gorgeous event to usher in the holidays. And after this beautiful, long, elegant dinner, and there was this live jazz band, and then after the band there was a pianist who was basically there to have people come sing with him. I sang the whole night, and I sang, I think, well enough for the first time in public, because you know what, I didn't care. I think I used to care so much about doing good or sounding good or looking good. I didn't care. I was just having so much fun receiving this gift of this beautiful moment. I was so tired in the car. I didn't want to go. And when I got there, it was like, how special is this? This candlelit table with lots of people I love around me, this beautiful dinner and this beautiful music. I was just sort of in the zone. I'm like, this is so special, and I'm going to relish it, and I'm going to just receive it, that I have this wonderful opportunity to partake in this, and it's a gift, and I'm going to relish this moment with my friend, and we were singing, and it was just so nice. And my friend's like, wow, you sing. I didn't know you can sing. I was like, I didn't know either.
Oh my gosh.
And it's funny. It's just because I just stopped caring, and that there's flow. It's not blocking anymore. It's not coming from a place of, I don't know. Yeah.
Do you feel like it started off as a decision? Did it start off as a decision, to receive, and therefore kind of opened it up?
It has a lot to do with my spiritual work. So I host, so on the side, apart from being a journalist, I'm a Reiki practitioner, and I host a lot of spiritual workshops and hosting my first retreats now next year internationally as well. So I do have I don't like to call it healing, because I don't heal you. I help you on your healing journey, but I do have one-on-one Reiki practices. I do oracle card readings, and I hold space for people. I coach them through their meditation. And a big part of that journey was to really receive from the universe. Because anytime I walk into a space or a session, and it could be with one person or I've done as big as 100 people, even if I have an outline or a general idea of what's going to happen, no two sessions are the same because everybody in that room, every single body and human being and soul will need something different. So the alchemy is always different. And it's always been just allowing and trusting. And it's all about receiving. And I feel so comfortable in that space. And I can sing the mantras and healing songs with no problem.
Right.
But when I would come out of that space, my witchy, woo-woo, shaman staff, as my friends call it, space, it's like I almost had like another different persona. There was no real integration yet of both aspects. And I think a big part of the end of this journey is that integration of all sides.
Absolutely.
So I can be this, and I'm all of it, all at the same time.
Oh my gosh. So last night was basically the beginning of that integration.
Yes.
Yeah, girl.
Maybe I have a singing career. No, just kidding.
Do you know what's so funny that you say that about singing? Because I used to say to my friends, I was like, man, if I were born again and then there was like this opportunity to choose your gift, I was like, I would love the gift of singing. I was like, can you imagine just like opening your mouth and being like, Joy? You know, like in the shower, like,
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And I
but you
noticed
have
that people who have that gift, or sometimes they're not even really good singers. They're just good because they love it.
Yeah.
And they believe in themselves. So like to be able to go out there and sing in front of people, it's like it's really like an unlocking of your solar plexus chakra and your throat chakra and just being like, ta-da, here I am, world.
That is so true. That is so true.
It's quite symbolic for me. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, congratulations.
That's so fun. Watch out, record dropping on Spotify. No, just kidding. But thank you so much, Kristine. So look, just to wrap, I feel like we could go on for a really long time. This is going to be like a 2-hour podcast. But just to sort of wrap things up for our audience out there, I always like to leave them with one thing that they can do today to change their life and make that change for themselves.
Okay. My one tip or one thing I would love to leave you with is get to know what you really want and own that desire. The moment that you allow yourself to want what you want, you'll start to see things shift around you because the very beginning of your journey begins from your clarity of your desires and your permission, give yourself the permission to want what you want. And from there, watch things change.
I love that. Allowing yourself to want what you want. We always second guess ourselves, right?
Totally.
It's like, why do I want that? Like, what's wrong with me? Right?
Yeah,
why not?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's really beautiful. And, for me, I think I just want to remind all of you of the power of being your own cheerleader and believing in yourself. Because like we've mentioned today, it all starts with that I am a photographer moment, right? It all starts with that I am, not I want to be or I will be or maybe I can be, as I am. So whatever it is that you want today, so side story, I did this sort of branding exercise with a friend of mine. Hi, JJ. He was on the podcast last week, so listen to that as well. And he was like, write your profile that you see in 5 years, okay? What you want to be in 5 years, but write it as a fait accompli. I was like, okay. And then you know what? I took that and I put it on my website. I wasn't doing any of that. I just put it on my website. And in a year, without even looking back at this whole thing that we did, after a while, all these things were happening. Things were moving so fast. And then I was like, let's look back at that document. Everything happened.
Get out.
No joke. Everything happened. And whatever I put a year ago on my website that was not true then is now true now. So
amazing.
The power of saying, I am.
So I'll give you context for the tip that I just gave. Once upon a time, one of my healers, she gave me an exercise to write down 100 things that I wanted. Oh, you would think that's such an easy like exercise. I stopped at about number 30. I didn't know what I wanted after 30 items, and I just left the exercise. I left it for about 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
And then what happened in that time, I had split up with my partner at the time. And then so now I'm rolling solo, I'm single, and I revisit the exercise and I'm like, all right, number 31, what do you want? And I was like, I think it had something to do with travel, like more travel or something like that. And then I realized the reason why I couldn't complete that exercise was I deep down inside would not let myself want certain things because it would mean the demise of something very important to me, which is my relationship. So a lot of the times, especially when I speak with people who are quite accomplished and they're very good at what they do, and I ask, and they go, yeah, I'm really good. I'm here now, but sometimes I think, am I happy? And I ask them, are you happy? And they go, I don't know, maybe I'm like 6 out of 10. And I go, well, what do you want in life? And they go, well, that's it. I don't know. Yeah. And that's so two things when I say know what you want. And if you don't know what you want yet, it's okay, because number one, the fact that you've identified that, you realize you have all this space to then create new desires. And the second thing is, if you feel kind of stuck identifying what you want, it could be worth querying yourself as to why. Is it because you fear that if you really want something that you're going to have to cut other things off? And that's very fair.
Absolutely. That's, a lot of times we are afraid to go after what truly makes us feel alive. I try not to veer away from happiness because happiness is fleeting, but what fills and nourishes our soul. And it's because those things, like you said, mean that when you commit to it, things around you have to change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's absolutely, I would like to try that exercise.
Whoa,
I don't know if I can do 100 things.
Yeah.
That's hard to fill.
Yeah, well, give it a shot. See how you go. It took me a while to complete it. It's funny because another friend of mine did the exact same and she just went to town on it. She was like, babe, I want $1 billion. I was like, write it down. So she didn't really, your approach is going to be your approach, and that's going to be your experience of the exercise.
Exciting.
Yay.
Well, guys, this has been such a rich podcast. I think, yes, like I said, we could go on for ages, but maybe we'll just do another take two some other time. But Kristine, thank you so much for making the time. She literally just came off the airplane today looking like this with a lost luggage. Okay, so she is the style maven. But also just, I know that you're here to visit family and you have a busy schedule. So I'm so grateful that you decided to spend your time with us today.
It's absolutely my pleasure. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. All right, guys. So I hope you choose to embody all your desires and allow yourself to have them. This has been Stephanie Zubiri for Soulful Peace, bite-sized information to nourish your body, mind, and spirit.